Hi, everybody. I just wanted to come on here quick. I haven't put out a video in a while. It's just been hectic Christmas and holiday season. Um, so I don't want this to be too long. But there's been a lot of talk about is Christmas pagan? And, you know, things like there's a lot of misconceptions because people just don't study. So I just wanted to get on here quick and tell you about some things that I have studied in depth, like years of my life. So it's not like just something I just read that I'm just passing along or just a meme or something. Sometimes people will just believe anything. They'll hear one sermon on it, or they'll hear even if someone wrote a book on it, or if they see something on Facebook or whatever, they just form an opinion without really doing any research. And I'm guilty of that too. So, we just all have to be really careful of that. But I just happen to know, I love history. So even when I was a real little girl, I studied history. In fact, I'm 51. So when I was 10, 11, 12, there's no such thing as the internet, And in fact, we didn't even have a computer. I think the first Apple computer came out right around that time when I think it was like 14-ish. It's the first time that there was one in our school, and there was like one. I think there was like one class and there was like 3 computers, and we all had to take turns on it just to learn how to turn it on and see what it was about. So, I didn't grow up with internet. Today you could just Google stuff, but this is the problem. Today you Google stuff and people out there on the internet could just change history. They could put out there whatever they want. You don't know if it's true or not. But when I was little, I loved to study history, and I had encyclopedias. And I used to go to the library. When I was real little, I had a whole set of encyclopedias, and I still have them. I loved these books. I loved looking things up. And then when I could drive, when I was 16, there still wasn't internet. There wasn't internet till I was an adult and I had kids. So it was like the early 2000s, so all throughout, I graduated in 1990, so I didn't have any internet. I used to go to the library, and I used to sit at the library all day and look up stuff and maybe check out a couple of books that I would read in depth and study. So if I wanted to know something, I couldn't just Google it. I can't even imagine. Like, when I discovered Google, I was so excited. Like, oh my gosh, you could just look up anything, because I just love information. But you had to dig. You had to really dig when I was little. You had to read the whole book to find out something. You couldn't just go and see one tiny little fact. You had to read the whole book to find out. Encyclopedias had like smaller, shorter versions of facts. I think that's why I liked them. It was like a little bit quicker, but still you had to dig, and then you looked up one thing and it kind of sparked 10 other questions, and you had to look all them up. And, it wasn't easy to get information. And I think I was definitely still a teenager. I think I was like 16-ish when, the, singer Enya came out, and she was saying how she was a Celt, and I'm like, what is a Celt? And then I was fascinated to find out, and then I dove so into who were the Celts and who were the Druids, and then that sparked my interest into ancient history, and I would go to the library for hours and study. Well, what is this tribe, and what is this tribe, and where did they migrate from, and haplogroups, like DNA haplogroups, and I mean, I studied for hours at the library. So this subject that I'm about to talk to you about is something that I have studied my whole life since I was a teenager, and read lots of books. I have so many books about like ancient history, ancient Irish history, ancient Celtic history, Druids. So many books. They're all packed right now, or else I'd show you. Like literally, I have like hundreds of books, and then when I got a Nook and it was, online books became a thing, I have more online. So this is not something that I just went and read. Okay. I just wanted to drive that point home. Okay. I have studied this my whole life. So I just happened to be, and the royal families. That's how I got into studying the royal families too. So this is a subject I really know about. And I still have my encyclopedias. Now, the thing is, if you find encyclopedias that were written before the internet, some of that information is different, because today on the internet, they could just change whatever they want. Even on like encyclopedia sites, someone could just go on and write whatever opinion they want. It's so easy just with a click of a mouse to just change history. And it's not, people started throwing out books because it's like, well, why do I save all these dusty things? Why am I carrying these around? Why am I cleaning these? When, it's just all on the internet now, right? So people don't have those to go look at anymore, but I still do. And I'm telling you right now, if you go look up this subject in any book that was written before the internet, you're going to see that what I'm about to tell you is the truth. And then they changed it recently online. So, and there's lots of different ways that they twist. Now, everybody knows that, maybe not everybody, but it just seems to be, common knowledge out there, right? That if you're going to lie, that the best way to lie is to stay as close to the truth as possible, right? You just stay as close to the truth as possible. And that way, you could just convince somebody that they're just a little wrong, if you get caught. Or then maybe you just misunderstood something just a little bit and you could get out of it, right? And it's sad that is common knowledge, and that is something that people know to do because people want to lie. I mean, that's sad. But it is a fact, and I'm bringing it up because that's exactly what happens. They have an agenda. There are people out there. There are like satanic groups out there. There's pagan groups out there. And of course, Satan himself and people that don't even know that they're working for him. So they may not have, there's people that have an actual agenda, and then there's people that don't even realize that they're being used by Satan and that he has an agenda and he's using them. But it's stuff that's twisted so little, and a little bit at a time. And you don't realize that, what's really the truth. So I'm going to tell you. When the ancient, ancient Ireland and Scotland and Wales and all these Celtic tribes, before they heard the gospel, they were pagan. They had certain holidays that they celebrated. So we know like things like the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and there's a lot of holidays that people are saying, oh, well, that came from the pagans. It's not, Christians didn't actually invent Christmas. It came from the pagans. It is pagan roots. And they'll do that with Easter and really everything today. And there's two different kind of lies that started. One is that Christians came over and they forced these pagans to be Christian, and with fear of death, they forced them to be a Christian, and then they stole their holidays. They made them, they changed all their holidays, and they made them Christian, and they made them, that is a lie. The second one is that it's, well, let me talk about this one first. Okay. So this is the truth. This is the truth what happened. When St. Patrick and St. Augustine went to Ireland to witness to the Celts, they converted willingly. They fell in love with Jesus. They absolutely fell in love with Jesus. This is before the Roman Empire, okay? So they twist history. They're saying that the Romans came over and they were already like Christian, and they just made everybody change. This is way before the Roman Empire. And these were just missionaries that went there. And the Irish pagans and, that whole area, that whole region, right? They fell in love with Jesus. They fell in love with Jesus. Nobody forced them to be Christians. They fell in love with Jesus. And they had, they lived all their life having certain customs. And their customs were not necessarily, some of them were about other pagan gods, right? But some of them were just, like the harvest time, like things that they do, just like, every Christmas I make lasagna. Things like that, just stuff in the family that people did, in the community that people were used to doing. So farmers, of course, plant things in the spring, and they reap things in the fall. It's harvest time, and there's usually a big party and a big bonfire. And there were pagans that were worshiping pagan gods at times, but some of this wasn't really like pagan god worship. It was just, yay, it's the harvest, and we're going to have a party and a bonfire, and you know what I mean? Like it was just community. It was just, family traditions, just the way that things were, right? And so at all of those times, because they were not Christian and they had these pagan beliefs, they would thank whatever god of the harvest or whatever they believed in at the time. But when they became Christians, they realized that these were false gods, and now they thank Jesus at this time. So Easter and spring, they were celebrate. People wanted to have babies and have new life at that time. If you couldn't have a child, you were looked down upon, like something was wrong with you, or you couldn't, like having a family and procreating was so very important. We don't understand that today because, people don't want kids and they just kill their children, and they fight and march to kill their children. But throughout history, having children was something really important that everybody really wanted to do, and have a family. That was the goal. And so, around springtime, when all the nature was giving birth and stuff, there was a lot of traditions about getting pregnant and having babies and stuff. And they would just naturally thank these pagan gods because that's all they knew. When they became Christian and they realized these pagan gods were either one, demonic, and little gods. These are fallen angels that are doomed for hell. These pagan gods are real, but they're fallen angels that are doomed to hell, and they want to take you to hell with them, and they want to use you and make you their slave while they're here. They do not love you. They did not die for you. They cannot save you, and they cannot make your life better. Only God is God, and created us and created them, and has, loves us so much he redeemed us, and now we can go to heaven. He gave us life. So when they realized that they were serving false gods or just rocks and sticks that people made, so it was either an actual deity that was a fallen angel, or that was demonic, same thing. Or they were carving stones and stuff and worshiping stone. And they realized this is dumb because they can't help me. God, there is a real God that loves me. And he sent his son to redeem me. And when they heard the story, they wanted to celebrate God. They wanted to celebrate Jesus. So, of course, at their fall festivals and at their spring festivals, they were now thanking God and Jesus. So their customs remained, but they now were thanking God at those times. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? You can see that would easily happen. That's how you would transition as a community. If everyone is used to having a big party at the harvest time, you're going to now all thank Jesus together, right? So it wasn't that anybody forced them to change their holiday or stole their holiday, right? This is just a natural thing in a community. It just changed. So that's what happened. And on top of that, there were actual pagan things that they did that they wanted to now do for God. And what I mean by that, it's not like they had a pagan ritual like sacrificing a child or something horrendous, or any kind of certain ceremony for a pagan god that they now did for God. I don't mean that. Okay? Because when I say these next statements, that's sometimes what people misunderstand, and they think, oh, well, we're not supposed to worship God the way people worship the pagan gods. It says that somewhere in the Bible, even though they can't give me a verse. But anyway, that's not what I'm saying. They didn't now worship God the way they worship the pagan gods. Okay? They were just celebrating their natural community life, with the harvest. And if they were used to celebrating, think about the way life was when you were, you didn't have heat and air conditioning the way that we do today, right? All winter long, you were pretty much stuck in the house. And, because of the weather, can you imagine the celebration that would naturally just happen when spring came, right? I mean, we know how exciting it is when it starts to get warmer outside after winter. But during our winter, we could still go to buildings that are warm and warm our house. In the summer, we could be cool. And things do not change all that much in our life during the seasons right now, right? We may have to wear a coat or something from here to the car and from the car to work, right? But it's not that different. But back then, it was very different. I mean, you were really stuck in the house and couldn't go out during the winter. And when it started getting, warm, I mean, you wanted to open up the windows and go out, and you wanted to celebrate and jump around, right? That was just a natural thing. That has nothing to do with pagan gods. But if that's all you know, and you do worship pagan gods, then you would be celebrating, you would, be venerating them or thanking them or something in the process. But now that you're a Christian, you're going to be thanking Jesus and God in the process, right? So if springtime, they used to hide eggs or paint eggs, and you know why? Because chickens started, they don't lay eggs in the winter. Now they're laying eggs because it's the springtime. So they're celebrating. So they may paint eggs and hide eggs and have egg hunts with their children. They didn't have TV. They didn't even have books back then. You know what I mean? So they're just being human and having fun with their children and their families and their communities. So they weren't necessarily worshiping any pagan god. It was just a community fun thing to do, right? So now, of course, they are thanking God at those times, though, right? So at times where they celebrated the summer solstice and things that they did at that time, and all the things they did that they would normally maybe venerate their other gods, now they're saying, thanking God and Jesus. So it just kind of became a Christian holiday through time like that, naturally, just a progression with humans, the community. So then as the Roman Empire did take over, when the Romans did come and take over, they enjoyed these celebrations too, and the customs that they did at these times. And they said, "Oh, that's cool that you're like celebrating Jesus at the harvest and doing this, the way that you do things." Just like, if you were to travel to another culture and you realize what they do for Christmas or what they do for New Year's or whatever, it's fun to find out. But today we just look on the internet or we have travel. But back then they didn't see other groups of people that often. To get to travel and to learn from another group of people was really rare, right? So when the Roman Empire took over the world, they were building roads and more people were moving around and more people were meeting that were different cultures. And they were exchanging just things that they did. And people were like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to do that." I mean, that's just natural. You could see that just naturally happened, just like today, in like the late 1800s, we had a lot of Italians come to America and Irish come to America, right? So we had a lot of like Italian food and stuff at that time, right? And now we have a lot of like Mideastern and Mexican immigrants coming, right? So now that food is like really popular because we didn't have that before. And now like those restaurants are popping up and now people are like into eating that, right? It's the same kind of thing. So, you go to a different land or people are now moving around and mixing and they're like, "Oh, I want to do that too." And so the Roman Empire at that time had already adopted Christianity. And then they are, coming over to Ireland and mingling with the Celtic community. And then they're like, "Oh, I want to paint eggs too, or have an egg hunt." And, "Oh, well, you're celebrating Christmas at this time, the birth of Jesus at this time. That sounds fun. Let's do that." Right? So that's the truth. Okay, that's the truth. There's also something called nullification. If you look it up, you'll see exactly what this is. The word nullify was actually a process from Jewish cultures. So if somebody, say they conquered a land or a people, and God commanded them to wipe them out. Say they were evil, and God said, take them all. Don't take anything of theirs. Just kill everything and burn everything. There were times where people were so evil that God told them to do that. There were other times where God said, in war time, you have war and you conquer some other land, you're allowed to take their loot, their stuff. If they did that, if they took somebody's stuff and say it was something, if it was absolutely pagan, like a pagan god, of course they had to destroy it, right? But say it was just something that was, trying to think of an example, but something that was naturally like just from that culture that you liked and wanted to adopt into, you wanted to make it holy. In other words, you wanted to adopt it. Or say you traveled and you came to know the God of Israel and you just wanted to serve. That happened a lot. Foreigners decided, "I want to serve this God," and they lived among the Jews, right? We know that many of Jesus's ancestors were foreigners, like Rahab and Ruth, right? So there were many people who said, "I want to serve this God," but they may have had articles or customs from their hometown that, were not evil practices worshiping any kind of pagan god, but it was something that they did or an object that they had, but they wanted to do it still. Like say they celebrated birthdays and people in Israel didn't celebrate birthdays, but they still wanted to celebrate a birthday. Something like this, right? That's not a thing, but I just can't think of an example. So say something like that happened. They would go through a nullification process where they would dedicate it to God. And they would say, I used to do this for this God or for this custom, but now I want to do it for you, God, the real God. And so they would nullify it and make it holy. An example would be, say you're an alcoholic and you go out and party every Friday night. It was your thing. And then you become a Christian, and instead of going out to the bar every Friday, you want to go celebrate Jesus every Friday. And you say, you know what, this day used to be my party day, but now I want to go witnessing on Friday. I want to use this day for Jesus. Instead of drinking and sitting at a bar, I want to use this time to either study the Bible or go tell people about Jesus, or, in some way you want to use that time now for Jesus, right? That's the same thing. But they had like a ceremony, So you used to do something and you said, you know what, I used to do this and it was sinful, but on every Friday, but now I want to dedicate every Friday to Jesus. It's the same thing. They would have things that they found that they liked, but they wanted to do it now for God. And they decided, they became Christian, and they decided, you know what, I used to do this for this pagan God, but now I want to do it for Jesus. I used to celebrate the harvest and, venerate this God, but now I want to thank God, the true God that I found for it. That's all it is. That's all that happened. Okay. And then as time went on, and people around the world, mingled together, then they just adopted these customs, just like we do, like today. And it's not like Christmas has pagan roots. Do you know what I'm saying? Or, oh my gosh, we can't have a Christmas tree because they used to do this for a pagan god. First, that's not even true, so I want to get to that. But the Christmas tree didn't even come about till the 1500s. Okay, so that didn't even happen. And I'm going to make a whole video just on the Christmas tree because this is like a half hour already. But so that didn't even happen. But I'm just using that as an example that, they'll say, people are saying that Christmas has pagan roots. And even if pagans used to do something else on that day, number one, they themselves became Christian. Those pagans became Christian, and then they started doing it for Jesus. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, so what? If a pagan used to do that, or say they decide they still want to worship someone, here in America becomes pagan. They want to go back to some pagan, worship around Christmas or something instead. That has nothing to do with me. That is not, the way that I want to celebrate Jesus's birth, the day that I pick and decide I want to celebrate Jesus's birth, it has to do with me and what's going on in my heart. Even if that ceremony or practice, let's just take the harvest, for example. Is it wrong to have a bonfire at harvest because pagans used to do this at harvest time? Does that mean that it's sinful to have a bonfire now if you're going to thank God for your harvest? No. Right? It's just so, not only is it silly, but it's putting yourself and other Christians now in bondage. You're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't celebrate Christmas because it came from pagan roots. Well, that's not even true. There were pagan holidays around that time, but Christmas started because pagans became Christian and decided to worship Jesus in that way at that time. So there's that. And the thing is, think about Christmas for a second. yes, there's a lot of commercialism, and Satan wants to take this day and he wants to try to destroy it any way he can. And now he's trying to destroy it this way. But of course, he like wants everyone to be into Santa and all of this and focus on that instead of Jesus. However, you can't deny that there is more focus on Jesus at Christmas time all over the world than at any other time throughout the year. I mean, even Easter. The whole world literally shuts down. Everything closes. When I was a little girl growing up, they had the blue laws and everything was closed on Sundays. Now, slowly that changed and now everything's open on Sundays, right? Except for Chick-fil-A. Yay. But everything still closes on Christmas. Every store closes. And I drive for Uber Eats for extra money after work. And on Christmas, the only thing that's open is Wawa and Chinese places. Everything else is closed. The whole world shuts down. Why? Because we are going to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Not only that, there are hymns praising Jesus all over the regular radio at every Christmas party. Yeah, they have commercial ones in there too, but at no other day, at no other time, is there so many songs and so much focus on Jesus than at Christmas time. Even if it's getting less and less, which we could change, but if you're going to say it's pagan and not celebrate Christmas, we're not going to change that, right? We're supposed to be keeping Christ in Christmas, but people are saying, oh, Christmas is pagan. It's a lie from Satan to stop this. Think about how not only the world shuts down, but families get together. Families that haven't been together in years, or even all year they can't see each other, and they travel to see each other once a year. And they reconnect. People are encouraged to forgive. People want to give to the homeless or take in people that don't celebrate or don't have anyone to celebrate Christmas with. And they're like, you know what? We're going to celebrate. We're going to have this person over because they have nobody to celebrate with. People give to charities and stuff. I mean, this is a time of goodwill. This is a time, Christmas time is when, Christmas miracles happen. In healing in families and in relationships, and people are, giving and thinking about giving and thinking about Jesus, and there's songs all over the radio praising Jesus, and everything in the world shuts down. Why would a Christian be against a day like that, a season like that? Why not try to keep that more and more? If you say it's pagan, you're giving it back to the pagans. So the pagans that got saved and became Christians, they stopped it from being a pagan day, and they are now using it as a day to love Jesus and celebrate Jesus. And you're going to what? Give it back to the devil? Why? Why would you do that? Let's keep Christ in Christmas, right? I mean, I just think, and we know God judges us by our hearts too. What's in our heart? You're not doing anything pagan by celebrating Christmas, because in your heart you are celebrating Jesus, and you are. I mean, the whole world has it spread. It started with those little pagans in a little, Ireland, and it spread all over the world. And now today, everybody celebrates Christmas. Even Muslim countries, because of the internet, now know what Christmas is, and see Christmas movies and the things that people are doing, and they're hearing the gospel. And you want to stop that? I mean, think about it. Think about what you're doing. You are just feeding into the hand of Satan. That's what you're doing. And quickly about the Christmas tree, I'm going to do a whole video on this, but the verse in Jeremiah is clearly about an idol. It says carving an image, and it talks about, worshiping. Nobody worships a Christmas tree. It's a decoration. And actually, it started out in a town in France, and it was just decorated with apples. And it was reminding people of their sin, the Garden of Eden, and reminding us to repent of our sin. And then they started hanging like the host crackers, that you take at communion, on the tree. And it reminds us that we could be forgiven of our sin. And then that evolved into the Christmas balls and decorations that we have today, because then people started making figurines of Jesus and angels and the manger scene and stars and hanging them on the tree. And that is the history of the Christmas tree. It all started with Christian stuff. And nobody's having a tree in their house to worship any pagan god. It's a decoration. Don't let yourself be bound to this and then feed into the hand of Satan to stop all of the goodness and the goodwill that happens, and people stopping and worshiping Jesus on this day and at this time. So anyway, that's the true history of the pagans and how we have our holidays today. And you could look that up for yourself. If you look up things on the internet, you're going to see how that's twisted. They're going to say, oh, it was really this pagan holiday and Christians stole it. Or, whatever they twist it into. There's so many little ridiculous lies. If you find any book that was written before the internet, though, you'll find the truth. That the encyclopedias I have are written in 1937. And that's the truth. Also, though, like I said, I have studied the Celts in depth since I was a teenager. I have many, many books, and including, St. Augustine, City of God, and all of the people who wrote about, like, St. Patrick and how their lives changed because of him and what happened. I mean, all of that. Study it before you just, read some meme on Facebook and then just believe it and then change the whole course of history. I mean, basically, Christians will be turning it back into a pagan holiday. Why would you do that? Right? I don't understand. So anyway, that's today's video. Please like and subscribe. I have more subscribers, but there's like 6 likes on my videos. So if you could please if you like my video, please subscribe so you could see new ones. I'm going to do the one about the Christmas tree more in depth. I'm also going to then continue with my study of Revelation and the Antichrist. And oh my gosh, I have hundreds of videos coming up. So I will talk to you soon. Okay. God bless and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.